panel originally was appointed to be a panel of 4 members, but during the hearings proceedings, the panel became a group of 3 commissioners. They were Professor Roger Marker, Mike Mohi, and Mr. Dennis Nugent from down south snow-covered country in Wanaka. Basically, the report and recommendations from the panel, the council is faced with 2 simple options: to adopt the report and recommendations from the panel as set out in the attachments, or to not adopt the panel's recommendations. There are certain implications if the council decides not to adopt those recommendations. They're tied up in issues of natural justice. I won't profess to be an expert around the ins and outs of what the panel has recommended. They heard the evidence at the hearing and amongst themselves came to their conclusions and recommendations. So if there are any questions arising about the content of their report and recommendations, I'll give it a stab in response, but yeah, as I say, certainly don't profess to be an expert on their entire rationing and reasoning. If the council were to adopt the recommendations from the hearings panel, then I would see that we could do the paperwork and turn around and issue decisions in early June, which would signal the period for submitters to consider lodging appeals. The appeal period runs for 30 working days, which would take us through to mid-July by my count.
I'm correct in saying if we didn't accept those, the hearing would have to go right through the process once again, would it not?
Yeah, you'd have to go back to rehearing the submissions.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have to go right back and invite a whole lot of submissions again. Yep.
Mr. Chair, I understood that there was issues about conflicts of interest in this hearing, and in fact the original chair of the panel stood down as a result of
the relevance of the question, Councillor.
So my question is, does this council need to, as a whole, look at those conflict of issues?
No, they were dealt with. They were dealt with at the hearing.
Yeah, I understand they were dealt
with.
Well,
why would we look at them again?
No, Mr. Can you just please hear me out? Not in relation to this, not in relation to this panel and this hearing itself, but in relation to future issues. Does this council need to, excuse me?
No, point of order. Let's hear it.
Point of order.
Councillor Rem as well. Relax, please.
Standing order, if you like, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's fine. But just
ask. 3.1.4, 1.3.4, and that is the relevance. This is on Plan Change 5. This is what the debate is around accepting or not accepting Plan Change 5.
Accepted.
That's what we're here to
Accepted.
discuss.
Your question, please, Councillor. We're talking about Plan Change 5, exactly.
Well, okay. You're not interested in how we can.
Doesn't matter if I'm interested or not.
I'll leave this for another time. Thank you.
Other questions, please. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I've got 3 questions. One is just a clarification around the page 9. This is a simple one. My other 2 are not quite so simple. With the, on page 150. So it's page 9 of the tracked change. And the deletion of 15, am I correct in understanding that objective 15 is, as actually stands as is in the existing resource management plan with the deletion of the word and?
As I see it, the track changes would indicate that the entirety of Objective 15 would be deleted.
If I go back to the recommendations, Mr. Chairman, that's not so in the Commissioner's report.
Yes.
if I refer you to page 80 of the Commissioner's report, Mr Chairman, and 310, it states we need to give effect to the reinstated Objective 15.
Yeah, I think you have identified a typo there, or an unintended error in that track changes version of the appendices. So certainly the report and recommendations in the body of the document would suggest that Objective 15 still stands.
And it stands as the original wording without the addition
As
of
original,
the
yeah,
add.
that's correct, yep. So in terms of the council's decisions, or choices here, certainly it's within the powers of this council to adopt the recommendations with a couple of corrections and of that kind of order of change, rather than changes of real substance and alteration of intent, without having to go back and do the whole rehearing thing again.
Perhaps, Mr Chairman, it shows the workload that we really have. Yes, I have, and a couple, and I'm just not sure how to go with these, Mr Chairman. A couple of queries around changes that were made, and please, I make these in the spirit of trying to get things right, and I think the Commissioners have done an outstanding job, and it's a totally thorough report. But there are two matters that I query as to whether they're ultra vires. And one of them is on the introduction of a new issue, because I've been through all the submissions, and Mr Chairman, in understanding this, Commissioners can only hear the evidence and make decisions on the evidence. They cannot actually introduce material themselves, and the staff can only, if they want to make changes, make them through further submissions or on hearing the submissions that they've also responded to. So there are two matters here that I think have been introduced outside the scope. And one, and I think it's really nice. I like it.
Point
I
of order,
support
Mr
it,
Chair.
but I question. Right, point of order.
Councillor Porter, point of order.
Mr Chair, I don't think it's appropriate for Councillor Scott to be making
On what
input
basis?
and because, as it said in the Chairman, it's clear in Commissioner Scott's, this is on page 96, that there is a perception that she has an interest in proceeding the return of a dam project, and that could conflict with
We all have an interest in Councillor. We all have an interest in proceedings.
She has
Councillor,
been barred.
She is asking questions as she is entitled to do as a councillor. Overruled.
Mr Chairman, I refer to on page 39 of the Commissioner's report to the new issue that has been put in there, and you can pick it up in the, if I can find the various pages, in the actual track changes on page 1 of the track changes, which is on page 142. And that is an issue around introducing two proverbs, and as I say, I think it's I really support the concept, but no one submitted on this, and I'm really concerned as to where we stand there with introducing something that did not come through from any submission. So perhaps Mr. Ide might be able to give us some clarification around this. I'm really just wanting to make sure all the processes are right, Mr.
So those are your
Chairman.
only 2 points?
No, my other one is around another change.
We'll very quickly put that one on the table
I'll
too,
put
and
that one on the
Mr.
table
Ide can
too.
then
Okay,
work
the
through that.
second one is around policy Land Water 1B, which is on page 71, and that is on point 2, from points 260 to 263 in particular. And this arises, again, I think, not from the Commissioners so much as from a staff recommendation, not based specifically on a request from a submitter. The introduction under point C of microbiological water quality in rivers and streams is safe for people to swim in during the bathing season, I understand was a staff suggestion in response to recreational and amenity values of river be enhanced, or wording to that event in the submissions. I've been through all the submissions and I cannot find any wording around microbiological water quality indicators. Without any submissions on this, the commissioners have actually extended it to year round. My concern is, how can this work? How does it work? And what's the impact on, say, Wara District Council and Central Hawke's Bay District Council with the number of discharges that they have? And what is actually a stream? Because I have heard arguments before me and as a commissioner that even what sometimes is described as drains are actually naturally running creeks or streams. And where does this stop and start? So I'm just question how workable this is. We know that throughout the year when we've had storm events, we're always told don't swim after that.
We get your point.
Yeah.
We get your point. Mr. Ide, I don't know if you can actually sum that up in that short time, but
I'll give it a go.
Good on
The
you.
first issue in relation to the Maori proverbs proposed or recommended by the hearings panel, I guess my only suggestion is to refer to the panel's report, and where they talk about in paragraph 90, we agree with the submissions that change 5 proposes certain things about Maori values and interests. The submission that they refer to there by way of footnote is a submission and parts of it by Ngāti Kahungunu Iwi Incorporated. So I guess the panel must have reassured themselves that Nikki has somewhere in their submission raised an issue or a point that gave them grounds to then put this Maori proverb in their recommendations. Yeah, I can't second guess what other reasoning they may have had. In terms of the policy or the clause in the policy around microbiological water quality in rivers and streams are safe for people to swim, that's on the back of a number of submissions seeking greater recognition of recreational and amenity values and in the way water, particularly water quality, is managed. In our officer's report to the hearings panel, we said, well, recreational values, making things safe to swim in, doesn't necessarily equate to removing driftwood and making sure that the river flows are safe for people to swim in. It's very much focused on, or should be focused on, the water quality and the bugs and things in there being of a concentration that mean if you ingest it, you don't get sick from it. The greatest risk or likelihood of when people might get sick is during the bathing season, summer season. So that was our recommendation to the hearings panel, that this would be qualified and constrained during the summer period. The panel has seen fit to remove that constraint around the summer season. So what they're expecting now is microbiological water quality in rivers and streams is safe for swimming or contact recreation all year round. That will certainly have some raise some questions around how does this get implemented when we come to catchment-based regional plan changes, and also perhaps site-specific, location-specific resource consent applications. But each of those, I guess, will have to be assessed on their own merits within their own contexts at that time. But yeah, certainly admit that there are no doubt some other words in here that will leave us scratching our heads as to what does this mean on the ground in this particular circumstance in the months ahead.
My point is not whether I agree or not with it, it is whether it was in scope or out of scope. And are they, is Mr. Ard really happy that this is in scope?
I guess one of the final arbiters of that might be, well, the submitters lodging an appeal on one or other clauses and the Environment Court coming to a conclusion on whether that appeal has any merit.
Can you just run those two Maori proverbs past me again? The first one doesn't really make any sense, and the second one's a truism which doesn't need to be there. Why are they issues? That first one's, as I say, is nonsensical, except in a very, very general, but so it's not really an issue. And the second one is a sort of tautology. Those issues? What's the point of them?
Question better put to the panel members. It's unfortunate that Mr. Mohi's not here, so I can't answer that one.
Oh,
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. My questions really, I think they follow on from Councillor Scott's in terms of implementation and the reality of delivery. Can I just take you to page 55 of the agenda attachment? It's page 37 at the top and then page 55 at the bottom. This is the hearing panel recommendations. You got that? If we go down to chapter 182 or paragraph 182, you'll see there that the recommendations of the panel were recognising and providing for the recreational and conservation values. Do you see that statement there? And then we go further down to the bottom of the page at paragraph 185. There's freshwater and land use development management or integrated and sustainable manner. Further down at 1A, significant values. And I turn over the page to page 56 and item 4 there, safeguarding the life-supporting capacity and ecosystem processes. And I've underlined ecosystem processes. I then go further over to well, actually, I've gone as far, there's some intervening ones, but on page 85, we recommend objective 27A read, and one of the items there, A, is maintain biological diversity, aquatic ecosystems. So my point is this: we've got a variety and a range of expressions that one I can't really find the definitions for, and there's not the consistency when we come to apply them. And I'm referring now to, to page 160 at the very bottom, with the table which sets out the primary values. Do you see that? That's on page 160. You'll know that table well, no doubt. So what my question is this, is that we've got a suite of names there, biodiversity, ecosystems, etc., that I've highlighted, and then we come to that table, primary values, and I've got confusion about the lack of definitions available to us to really understand what's going on for practical application of the plan change. Am I being overly pedantic on this, or is there something else I'm missing around it? And particularly, just to finalise my question, the next page, page 162, has got the indicators in it, in the middle of it, that table, and I see physical and biological parameters being used as the measure. So my question really is this: where are the physical and biological parameters that define the terms used throughout the paper?